Imtiyaz Qureshi is now joining us. Imtiyaz, what do you make of the move coming in onto the banking space? Do you think it's justified?
Yes, Pankaj, definitely what we have seen today is almost a very good gap up opening, and then on the higher level some sort of a profit booking, but justifiable. One thing need to be understand that until unless Bank Nifty doesn't sustain above 16,730, there would be the chances that the profit booking would continue. But as of now, the trend look positive, basis positive until unless we don't see any lower top, low bottom formation on a closing basis. The trend remains positive.
Right. What do you make of ICICI Bank 6% higher today?
Pankaj, yes, from the banking sectors, I think so. The ICICI Bank is the one of the major contribution for today banking stocks. No doubt, almost on the daily chart, we can see that the stocks has already given a filtration of the gap down opening. So the next level, what we need to watch is 268 or 270 level. And if doesn't profit booking doesn't arise at 270 level, then definitely we could see this rally to be stretching till 280 to 290.
Right, 280 to 290. If about what level ICICI Bank sustains?
267.
267. So that's still a while away. Okay, we are getting Hindustan Zinc numbers also coming in. 2,149 crores. I think it's a clear beat. 1,600 crores or even lower than that was what the street was estimating. Let's just pull up Hindustan Zinc. There could be an initial reaction coming in on the higher side. I'm just looking at the name. Okay, it's up about, it's down about 0.6. So there is no major movement that we can see over there. Profit numbers on your screen, 2,149 crores. But I think that the estimates was way lower. So maybe, this doesn't really surprise. Okay, there is a tax write back of 300 odd crores. You adjust for that and still the numbers are looking in very good. 2,149 crores versus about 1,997 crores. These are YOY comparables. Total income has come in at about 3,132 crores. This is versus 4,100 crores, but this is because of the deflation that we have seen in the zinc prices. Tax write back of 300 crores versus tax expense of 550. So that probably explains that beat. As far as EBITDA is concerned, 1,300 odd crores, but these numbers are looking in good. They are not bad set of numbers. They are not looking in, weak set of numbers. And that's why probably we've seen a marginal recovery coming in into Hindustan Zinc. Not, of course, something like a Tata Steel or JSW Steel or any other metals pack. Moves slowly, but it's a name which people have been liking for a while. Mayuresh Joshi is now also joining us into the discussion. Mayuresh, your first view on Hindustan Zinc numbers. They're looking better than what was expected, or at least not as bad as it was expected, even though there is a tax write-back.
Afternoon, Pankaj. So if you adjust the tax write-back, I think the numbers are a little bit better, at least on the bottom line. The top line was always expected to be muted this quarter with both fall in the realizations that you're probably looking at. And again, I think one of the mines, Rampura Gucha, had some amount of issues related to how stripping was progressing on that front. So largely, I think it's going to be a call in terms of how realizations are expected to pan out. For Hindustan Zinc, whether that's zinc, lead, what kind of silver volumes come through from the Sindhisar coal mines. So I think the managed commentary on all these aspects will be extremely critical and crucial to watch out for. And again, I think the bounce back that you've probably seen over the past few weeks in prices of zinc and lead, I think that is also giving some amount of respite in terms of the outlook for the commodities. So clearly, I think the management outlook is going to be crucial. But if you adjust for the numbers, I think on the bottom line numbers, much better than what the street was expecting. Top line always expected to be muted.
Right. Mayuresh, what do you make of the move in ICICI Bank today, 6% higher? You think it was undervalued when it went to the 200 levels?
Look, it is again the perspective that one really talks about. So if you are a long-term investor, I think there was sufficient value if one really presumes that the next 4 to 6 quarters, if you go 2 quarters before, were going to be a little bit tough and tricky. So I think in that respect, the numbers still will be a little bit on the soft and tepid side as far as Q4 are concerned. What happens with Q1 of the coming fiscal will also be a little bit on the softer side. So what largely happens to the book after that, I think, will be a process of how the economic recovery happens. And if the economic recovery is strong enough, my own take is that the credit growth cycle should pick up much sooner than later. And by the second half of FY17, first half of FY18, the earnings growth specifically for a large part of these banks having corporate exposures, where the end corporates, whether they are metal, steel, real estate, commodity players, if they're seeing their working capital constraints getting eased off, the earnings recovery will be faster, and the earnings recovery should be in excess of 20-21%, at least for the larger private sector banks.
What do you make of IndusInd numbers, Mayuresh?
Largely stable. So I think if you look at the management commentary, I think the management commentary is again pointing out to the non-vehicle advances improving on a much faster note. And again, I think the recovery process, specifically in terms of how the NIMs are panning out, have been extremely encouraging. Secondly, I think if you look at most of their aspects, the industry growth in terms of advances, IndusInd is much higher than the industry growth. So again, on that aspect, it is an industry leader. And then thirdly, probably in terms of how their book is probably moving around, I think the book looks quite stable at this point of time. I think the only headwind possible for the stock would be how the valuations are panning out at this point of time. But largely, in my opinion, I think a stable and a solid set of numbers that IndusInd has delivered this time around as well.
Right. Imtiyaz, what's your view on IndusInd Bank? Not very frequently traded, but how would you view it on the charts?
Pankaj, intraday on a basis, maybe a positional basis, I think so the stocks look a little bit on a negative side. Today the stock has given a last 3-day bottom breakout. So this is an indication that the stocks can go back to 930 level. So might be watching for 930 level on a downside.
Imtiyaz, what do you view as far as BHEL is concerned? After the results went to the highs of 135, now 128. You think it has lost momentum?
Yes, Pankaj, the momentum has been a little bit lost, and the way the stock has performed, I think so very rarely we see such type of a rally in BHEL. In fact, from the level of 112, the stocks non-stop went to around 135, 136 odd level. And from there, I think so the 50 to 60% retracement is almost applicable for the stocks. So I think the downside, one can see 118, 119 coming back. And from there, we can see the third leg getting open. So as of now, the trend look little bit negative side and can see downside till 118, 119.
But would you want to short or you would want to stay away?
If some rally comes around, the stocks goes around 131, 132, then can initiate a short position with a stop loss of 136.
Mayuresh, we've spoken about BHEL earlier. Post the results, do you believe there is any reason to buy?
Not at this point of time, Pankaj. And clearly, I think the struggle is between how they execute their order book. The order book had depleted a few quarters back, but with fresh orders coming over the past few quarters, I think the order book has shown some sign of resilience. So clearly, I think the order book execution is going to be extremely pertinent for BHEL going forward. What happens with their employee expenses is also a crucial and a critical element in terms of how their other expenses are going to pan out and how their cash positions are going to increase. So I'm not in a hurry to buy BHEL at this point of time.
Right. You saw the new listing, Equitas Holding. Does that interest you?
It's an interesting play, and again, the microfinance component contributes 53% of the overall top line. That has grown at 45% on a compounded basis over the past 4 years. But what is more interesting is the used vehicle financing and the MSE business has actually grown at a pace of 125% close to that 2,350 odd crore mark. The asset quality has held out pretty well. So the gross NPAs is 0.2 on the microfinance side, 2.4, 2.5% on the used vehicle and MSE financing side. Now what happens basically after the conversion to a small payments bank, you're probably expected to see higher provisioning expected to come through, but I think it will satisfy most of the SLR/CRR norms because of the book that it is carrying. The only issue would be in terms of return ratios. ROEs are exceptionally high at 13%, ROAs at 3%, and that might just get a little bit soft as the conversion happens into the payments bank. But I think the numbers so far has been extremely encouraging. For the entire part of FY15, the top line was close to 401 odd crores. We've already done 420 odd crores for 9 months. In terms of profitability, it was around 107 odd crores, where it has already crossed 120 odd crores. So I think the outlook looks pretty encouraging. Valuations at around 2.1 after the huge rally that we've seen, 2.2 times price to book. Seems reasonable if you do a comparison check with SKS Microfinance. So I think the outlook for all these smaller players look very, very interesting. I think the management backing is extremely important for all these stocks. The management need to have conviction and strategy in place to drive their earnings growth.
Right. Imtiyaz, do you have a view, or on the first day of listing, it's incorrect for you to comment?
It will be very difficult to comment because as of now, can't say. At least we need to spend a couple of more trading sessions for the stocks to develop some technical tools.
Right. Biocon, what's your view, Imtiyaz? Can it rally further?
Pankaj, today would be the first day for the Biocon to show lower top, lower bottom formation, and this has already given an indication that the weakness could arise. No doubt the stock has already shown a very good performance from the level of 454 to almost 574. That is almost more than 100 rupees rally. So around 30-40 rupees the correction is almost can be seen, and downside can be seen around 514 level. So I would definitely wait for the stocks to retest 514, and from that level, if any bounce comes, then would be a very good opportunity to buy.
Right. Mayuresh, suddenly a lot of interest in Biocon.
But I'll still wait and watch, Pankaj. So what happens with their insulin facility in Malaysia? I think a lot of capex has gone through, and that will impact their ROEs, ROCs, which my own belief is should be in the range of around 12, 12.5 to 13, 13.5. Again, I think the kind of approvals that they're probably expecting to come through, I think that's a positive sign. But one must understand, I think it's a very painful process for the end approval to come through. And again, I think the potential market size for each of these approvals need to be closely monitored and studied. So I think after the sharp run-up that we've seen in the stock, I think I'll not be in a hurry to buy Biocon. I think more or less look at how numbers are panning out, what happens with their CRO ops, what happens with their insulin facility in Malaysia, what kind of capex plans are on place, and that will basically determine the trend going forward in terms of how the return ratios will pan out.
Right. As far as Cipla is concerned, do you like that name?
Oh yes, I'm optimistic on Cipla as a long-term story. The kind of pipeline that it has got purely in terms of the NDA applications, I think that is a very encouraging sign. 149 applications, 72, 73 approved so far. You're looking at a huge potential CFC inhaler size of more than $3 billion. You're probably looking at a launch happening in the UK market. And though there might be some generic launches that might happen in the US market, I think the opportunity itself is very, very large in the core products for Cipla. The domestic business has held up pretty well. And our own take is that over the next 2 years, 18% growth, both in terms of top line and earnings, is not ruled out. So I think an EPS around 27, 28 odd rupees is what I'm looking at for Cipla on a by 17 basis. So I like the story, I think, but it's a long drawn out story. So I think investors should be having patience in this stock.
Right. Mayuresh, stay on with us. Imtiyaz, stay on, about a minute remaining for closing. Markets are about to close, 16 points down for the Nifty, 18 points rather, but this is in the last 5-6 minutes that we have seen this move coming in. Sensex barely flat. Tata Motors on your screen, 410, 411. 1.6% higher. Wipro is down 7%, 557. Wipro, of course, is a results impact. ONGC up 1.5%. ITC are down about 1.5%. NTPC absolutely flat. Power Grid down about 1%. ONGC up 1.5%. Cipla up about 0.25%. IndusInd Bank, again, that's a results impact, 1.3% in terms of lower, but numbers were very, very strong. Yes Bank down about 0.5%. Adani Ports down about 1.5%. Infosys down about 1.4%. Reliance 0.1% higher. Results come out tomorrow for Reliance Industries. Kotak Bank down about 0.3%. HDFC Bank down about 0.6%. Bharti Airtel 0.1% lower. Maruti up about 1%. GAIL up about 0.25%. Tata Motors DVR absolutely flat. There was a negative bias over there. Tata Motors main share, however, did quite well today. Sun Pharma 0.1% higher. Aurobindo 7 odd rupees lower. That's the closing bell. 17 points down for the Nifty, 19 for Sensex, but expect that to adjust quite a bit on the higher side because majority of these losses came in the last 5 minutes. We were broadly and mainly into green throughout the day. So 5-6 days of continuous green, and we've snapped that down today. ICICI Bank 5.2% higher, 250, 251. SBI 3.5% higher right from the word go since morning. Coal India 3% higher. Bank of Baroda should also come up into this top gainers list. It was also among the top gainers. Coal India was up 3%. Bank of Baroda was up about 3.5 odd percent. Let's look at some of the other gainers. BPCL was up 1.6. Tata Motors did well. It was up 1.5. As I told you, Tata Motors DVRs did not do particularly well. Wipro was down 7 odd percent, 557. Bharti Infratel was down 3.5%. Ultratech has been doing well, down 3.6%. BHEL was among the top losers today, down 3%. Ultratech we saw was there. ACC, Ambuja, Grasim, all three are cement plays, and all three of them did not do particularly well. Mayuresh, any view on Ultratech? You think valuations had run up ahead of expectations?
So again, I think one really needs to look at the perspective, and if one really assumes over the next 2 to 3 years the cement demand should come back in a significant manner, assuming how the real GDP growth will pan out and the government focus on housing and the infrastructure sector, I think players like Ultratech having a pan-India presence should benefit. I think what has probably happened in terms of the stock price movement, right from lower levels till levels that we'd seen, I think some money is being taken off the table because people are making money in this stock from an immediate short-term perspective. However, I think the larger picture with the acquisitions that they're doing and the expected capacity at the end of FY17 close to 91.2 MTPA would hold it in good stead. I think with realizations improving, volumes improving, utilization levels improving, I think the blended EBITDA per ton should improve drastically for Ultratech over the next 2 to 3 years. So again, I think this is not a story from now which can be played for a quarter or 2 quarters. I think you need to play this story over the next couple of years, where our belief is that even though valuations probably are looking very, very reasonable compared to the 5-year historical averages, I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to have a quantum amount of growth for a lot of these cement players, Ultratech included in that.
Imtiyaz, your view on the cement pack?
Pankaj, we had already seen a very good rally in entire cement pack, and I think so that this is a time right now to see some sort of a profit booking, some sort of short getting initiated. So I would definitely avoid right now at the stocks because...
You would avoid buying or avoid shorting?
I would avoid buying at this level, and if some rise come, so I would definitely use the opportunity of sell on rise.
Right. LIC Housing, what is your view, Imtiyaz? After results, it's cracked down quite a bit.
I think so the stock has a very good support at 450 level. Until unless it doesn't go below 450, one can look after for the opportunity to buy on decline strategy. And as of now, if I look after it, maybe some consolidation zone is continue. Today, entire day was a consolidation zone. I think the stocks would participate on a higher side, and 450 should not be broken.
Right. Mayuresh, LIC Housing, you think it was overowned name and that's why on an inline numbers it took a beating?
It was more to do with how the advances growth panned out for the company, and again the expectations were pretty high. But again, I think one must really understand that in a tough economic situation, I think the loan growth was quite reasonable, the asset quality was maintained by the company. Now going forward, if one really assumes interest rates coming down, the transmission happening, the cost of borrowing has come down drastically for the company. So I think the NIMs would be maintained, the spreads would be maintained for the company, but with asset quality pressures easing off, my own take is that the advances growth should be for the better part of the next couple of years in excess of 80 to 20%, which should drive earnings growth of 21 to 22% for LIC Housing. Again, at around 2.2, 2.3 price to book. Reasonably valued, but again, I think if one really has the conviction over the next 2 to 3 years, housing finance companies should do well, LIC included.
Right. Overall, any meaningful decline, you would be a buyer?
So again, I think one really needs to let the stock consolidate, let us see what happens with the other housing finance numbers, how the general industry trend is panning out, what kind of pace we are looking at for the better part of FY16, and what kind of a consensus pace comes out for an FY17 perspective. So I think let's wait for the other housing finance company numbers as well.
Right, Mayuresh, thank you so much for taking out time for us. Imtiyaz, before you go, any view on REC, PFC? How would you look at these names? They were up 5% today each.
I think so. Rather than going for REC, I would definitely prefer for PFC because the structures are looking very much positive. There is a very multiple tops formation in the range of 174 to 173, and today the stock has given a breakout of that. Maybe if any cool off, then definitely would be a very good buy. On the downside, I think so 158 is a very strong support. So until the stock sustain above 158, on the higher side there is a one gap down opening. That level can be filtered. That goes around 189, 190 level.
Right. Imtiyaz, thank you so much for taking out time for us. Always a pleasure.